Welcome to another episode of The Adult Potato. I'm Spencer Lotka. This week we're coming to you from what may or may not be one of the many farms that supply the Main Street Market at Centennial Park. The kids are back in school, and summer will be over before you know it. Get over to the farmer's market while you can. You're going to miss this weather in a few months, and the vendors out here are great. On top of that, we've got a great selection of food trucks. My favorite is Mako Street Food. Their bulgogi is out of this world. Enjoy. Now for local news. It's pretty damn clear that I've been giving the Fire District Board too much benefit of the doubt. And I definitely did that with their choice not to stream the meeting on the 16th. Well, that's no longer happening, so let's dive in. The Fire District Board meeting this week was, well, interesting. The staff chose not to stream it, so a resident jumped in and did that so everyone could see what was going on. What really sucks, though, is that there was no notice ahead of time that things weren't going to be streamed. The email with the revised packet didn't mention it. The link was just not in the packet. If you're going to change something that you've been doing for more than a year, in the spirit of transparency, the least you can do is put it in the email with the packet and give people a heads up. And with all the talk of spending money that happened in that meeting, this was a meeting that needed to be watched or attended. The initial reasoning from the district was, currently, we do not have adequate equipment to record and broadcast the Zoom. The cost of equipment and required operation during meetings to effectively stream the meetings is under research and consideration at this time. The meetings are made available for residents to attend in person. We will also be posting the audio recording on the website by end-of-day Fridays after the meeting. That's a little weak since they've been doing it with what they had, and even though the audio sucked, something was better than nothing. But the next morning, a new post was published throwing the retired chief, who retired on July 21st, completely under the bus, stating that he was the reason that the August 16th meeting wasn't Zoomed even though his last day was July 21st. There were a litany of complaints about things that happened after July 21st. That was somehow the chief's fault, when the board knew for a month when his last day was going to be. Had the board not sat on their hands for a couple weeks before getting off their asses to find an acting chief, none of this would have happened. They finally found a lieutenant to be the acting chief until they find an interim, but he didn't start acting in that capacity until the prior chief had already left. So who does that fall on? When your fire marshal and fire chief have both left after giving sufficient notice, and all you have left are lieutenants, who's supposed to pick up that slack? When you have no admins and nobody that knows the system, the board, who had a full 30-day notice, should have stepped up and made sure that they had everything they needed for the transition. Hell, the payroll was done by the previous accounting firm that dropped us like a rock because of the actions of the new board. They actually ran the payroll after the chief had left. The board, or the incoming acting chief, could have actually been proactive and gotten that information, but they dropped the ball like everything else they're doing with the fire district. Was it Lieutenant Kropp's responsibility to get that information before going on vacation, knowing that the chief's last day was July 21st? No, not really. It would have been nice if he had, but it wasn't really his responsibility as he wasn't acting chief at the time. Do you know whose responsibility it was? The board's? According to the bylaws, under additional duties, the officers of the board shall perform such other duties and functions as may from time to time be required by the board, by the bylaws or rules and regulations of the district, or by special exigencies, which may later be ratified by the board. By the way, exigencies means an urgent need or demand. Yes, I had to look that one up. And if having no fire chief or acting fire chief isn't a special exigency, then I'm not sure what is. It wasn't the prior chief's responsibility. He was there until the day he had scheduled as his last day. Anyone at any time could have come up to ask for a checklist of things that needed to be done. He had no reason to bend over backward for a board that had gone behind his back far too many times, instead of putting on their fucking big girl panties and ask him directly for information. All they had to do was to suck it up and ask him, but their hubris prevented that. Yes, hubris. The actions of the board put the district in the position that it's in, creating a hostile work environment, which caused the resignation of both the fire marshal and the chief. And then they sat there with their thumbs up their asses when the shit hit the fan, and nobody was proactive enough in this special exigency to find out how the actual district ran. The entire post of excuses for not live streaming the meeting can be laid at the feet of an inexperienced board that was now having to deal with the result of their actions that caused two good men to leave, so fuck 'em. The bar for this board, as low as it was, has been limboed under with ease. And do we expect anything less? Hell, we've been paying some firefighters for a rank they haven't achieved way past the time that would be given to a new employee, while we benefit greatly from others that outperform and challenge themselves to do more. It's glaringly obvious which side of the spectrum the board members fall on. They knew that the chief's last day was the 21st. They knew that the accounting firm's last day was the 31st. I'm guessing the reason that payroll was done at all was because the new accounting firm contacted the old one, not due to any action from the board. No, they just sit there and make rules and spend taxpayers' money. While we don't want the board to be involved in the operations of the district, when they cause a crisis like they did, they could have proactively hired a temp or used employers' counsel to step in to make sure the transition was smooth, because they did know that then Lieutenant Kropp was not going to be there because of PTO. They did know that Chief Patterson's last day was the 21st and that JVG's last day was the 31st. But it's easier for them to do nothing and then whine like little bitches afterwards because things didn't go smoothly. Wake the fuck up, people. Do you think that these people are actually going to be able to keep this district solvent? I pray that Director Lopez is a force for sanity on the board, along with Director Myers. Of course, as they said in the meeting, she's the only one who applied. Oh, and back to the accounting firm that dropped us. Here's a bit from their letter as to why they no longer wanted to be associated with Wellington Fire Protection District. I would like to state how proud we were of the positive comments made by the public. Ultimately, our goal is to bring trust and transparency to the financial matters of the district, and it was hugely rewarding to hear that the public appreciated our work. With all that being said, we cannot continue to, in good faith, provide the public with the transparency they deserve. Without the full and honest transparency from the board, the tone from the top is compromised. We wish the good people of the district the best of luck in the future and hope our grave concerns will be wrong. So far, it looks like they're hitting the nail squarely and firmly on the head. On a lighter note, during the meeting, we got to hear quite a bit from the acting chief. And it sounds like he's gone through the Wellington Fire Chief rite of passage, and that would be the Quality Inn and their false alarms. Chief is already done dealing with that shit and let them know that moving forward they'll be charged for false alarms. Hell, that might bring in quite a chunk of change to the district if history is any indication. And speaking of money, we got some mixed messages last night. First off, we're being told that we have extra money to increase pay and bring in more people, but then we're being told we need to sell off our extra vehicles and land. Something's not adding up, and that means that the board is not communicating the state of affairs properly to the taxpayers. Here's what I do know. We were in a bad spot with some shady shit just a short while ago. There is only one person left on the board that has that fresh in his memory, and he's doing everything he can to make sure we don't go back there. The new board members barely know the history, but did listen when Director Myers told them that last time we sold property, the money ended up going to payroll. The district just ate it up, and there was nothing to show for it. We need to stop spending money that we don't have. If we sell an asset, that money should be going to another asset, or we're going to end up back where we came from, proving that we are not responsible enough to run a fire district in this town. We're damn good at putting out fires and helping save lives, but we can't manage the business of running this district. The board gave the acting chief the okay to look into it, which is fine because it's just research. But let's think about this. What would that money even be used for? Operating expenses? Payroll? Neither of those are good answers. These are just my thoughts as a taxpayer, so let's get that out in the open right now. I'm an incredibly cynical person, and there's something missing when it comes to the finances, and I can't put my finger on it. First off, we're grateful for the acting chief and the work that he's doing, but I think that he should focus on personnel and keeping the wheels from falling off the bus while we're looking for an interim chief. For us to sell off assets before we even get an interim chief is not something that needs to be put on the table at this point. And here's why. The mill levy. Here's a little background on that. The mill levy is basically the figure that is used to calculate the amount of your property taxes that will go to the fire district. As I'm sure we're all painfully aware, the assessed property values increased by somewhere on average of 40% from the last assessment, and that means that if we keep the mill levy the same, the district will get about 40% more than last year. But in addition to that, Proposition HH will be on the November ballot, which could completely turn property taxes on its head. So there's a lot going on there. Yes, Larimer County has already said they're going to lower the mill levy, and Director Gator was also right in suggesting that we do the same. But rather than selling off the property on the east side of the highway, let's pump the brakes and see what we need to get through the end of the year. This taxpayer would rather you take a look at our expenses before you sell off property that was donated with the intention of being a fire station for the eastern side of town. And yes, it is big enough for a small satellite station. It doesn't have to be a big one like we have on the west side. Most of the population of the town is on the west side at this point. Also, if it is decided that a larger station is needed on that side of town, save the property until that larger property is found and then sell it to go towards that purchase. If you sell it now, that money is going to disappear, just like it did when Chief Green went to town on selling shit and misappropriating funds. And we do not need to go back to that style of spending way more money than we have. Oh, and another thing. This one's for you, Union President Shane Elder. While I know your fiduciary responsibility is to the firefighters, you don't get to always be the fun parent. A real leader also has to tell their people the bad news. Like, we can't afford to pay a lot of overtime right now. The district is in a bind, and we need to save money right now by bringing in part-timers instead of paying you time and a half. We don't have to pay benefits and all that other stuff when part-times cover for PTO and short staffing. And because of your rookie mistake of whining to the state union about part-timers coming from other stations, now you need to get your ass over to those other stations and let them know that we welcome them as part-timers as we try to pull ourselves out of a massive spending hole. You need to suck it up, Buttercup. Fun dad time is over. Because while your fiduciary responsibility is to the union firefighters, guess who is paying those firefighters? Me. And all of the other taxpayers. We're the ones that are employing them. And if you want them to stay employed, then you need to be a team player. Yes, take care of our firefighters, but not to the detriment of the district. Because we're teetering pretty close to consolidation with the action of the board, and that action seems to be coming from your requests. You need to realize that we're not Evans. We don't have millions of dollars in reserves. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. See the difference? We have until October 15th to get the first draft of the budget presented to the board, and we should have already received the preliminary assessment from the property taxes. We should have the actual amount by mid-November. By December 15th, we had better have a plan in place that will show the district taking their fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers seriously. We love our firefighters, and they deserve the stability that comes with fiscal responsibility and an action plan to ensure that this district, that started 118 years ago, back in 1905, will be around another 118 years. This town isn't going to put up with another Gary Green style of sell and spend. We're just not. We demand better. In the end, there was one good thing that came out of the meeting. There was a change in the bylaws to where the meetings will be moved to 5 p.m. instead of 4 p.m. This will make it easier for people to attend and really know what's happening with the fire district. Because we really do need the board to know that they're not doing a great job of explaining what's happening, and we will hold their feet to the fire on this. We're not going back to the bullshit that happened before, and we're still not comfortable with the acting chief's mentor being associated with the old chief that put us in this mess to begin with. On a slightly related note, because of the possibility of a fatal accident, if not a serious injury that the fire department will get called to, more and more kids are crossing the highway from the east side of town to get to school. This is an absolutely horrific thing, and the town needs to act on this immediately. It's not like this hasn't been going on for a while now. The underpass is dangerous, and if there aren't enough buses, then the town or Pudra School District needs to contract with a private company to get these kids to school safely. Do we really need one of our kids to be killed by a fucking semi before something gets done? Really, Wellington? Is that what it's going to take? Some kid's blood spilled on I-25 before we do anything about it? We interviewed Safe Routes to School a few months back, and we know they're doing everything they can to put something in place. But they can't do it without the cooperation of the state, county, and town in addition to CDOT. We need to do whatever it takes to stop this, and we need to do it now. All right, that's enough for this week. And after last week's episode, I'm off to a real brewery that's open during normal business hours for a beer. Keep in mind that Twitla and the Cringe will only be open for special events, which means little to no benefit to the community in taxes or job creation when they're applying for that liquor license. Just saying. Oh, and lock your doors. Make our deputies' jobs a little easier.